Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Somaliland and why are they not getting their independence? Why is Somaliland not recognized as a state? Now, the reason why Somaliland is not being recognized as a state, it's not more so about the US and the Allies not wanting it to happen. It's more so because the African Union doesn't want it to happen. And the US State Department, they did issue a statement in January of 2008 saying that while the United States does not recognize Somaliland as an independent state, we continue to believe that the question of Somaliland's independence should be resolved by the African Union. We continue regularly to engage with Somaliland as a regional administration. Now, if you look at the whole history of Somalia and how it came to be and what happened to those people in Somaliland, those people were persecuted. The Isaks, those guys are that clan, the Isak clan. They were prosecuted by Siad Barre in the civil war because and there's also there's a lot of things that go into that. Also, Somaliland actually did have its independence, but they opted to join with Somalia. They did opt for that, which they are regretting up until this day. Somaliland is regretting, relinquishing their independence till now. They've been regretting that ever since. Now, let's get into this a bit more. So, what does that statement from the United States Department mean exactly? What that means is that the US is willing to concede African countries' recognition to the African Union and is therefore following their lead. But the primary reason that the African Union has given for not recognizing Somaliland is that they viewed Somaliland's claim as just another enclave seeking separation. Apparently, it violates the principles of the African Union, which states blah blah blah. You guys don't want to hear all these little laws and principles. Okay, now there's actually another important aspect that goes into this. Somalia, they're refusing to recognize the existence of Somaliland. The Somali people from Somalia, they're refusing to recognize the state of Somaliland. If you ask any Somali person that is from Somalia, from Jubaland, from Puntland, from all these other states, right? These semi-autonomous states. And Somaliland is autonomous state because they have their own currency, they have their own everything. But if you ask anybody outside of Somaliland, do you guys think that Somaliland should get their independence? They will tell you no. Flat out, no. What state is that? Nobody even believes in that. Oh, it's never gonna get their independence. Which I don't really see the way they could get their independence. It's been a while now. Like, they've been campaigning for this for a while. But a major reason why it doesn't happen is also because of Somalia. The matter is also further complicated because there is another separationist movement in a tract of land which is called Puntland, the one I just mentioned right now, which joins these two reasons. As long as this instability exists, it's unlikely that the African Union will recognize any country other than Somalia. Somaliland and Puntland are both left out in the cold, until the African Union decides to recognize these regions as separate countries. It's unlikely that any other major country will do so. But the thing about that is, it's also because no country has any interest in recognizing it. The United States does provide some support to the government in Mogadishu, but there isn't any country on the other side that wants to support Somaliland. Recently we've had Taiwan come out and support Somaliland, which, is a great boost, but Taiwan is not even recognized itself. China considers it what do they consider them, a terrorist country? Anyways, for one thing, Somaliland and Somalia are not at war. So, there's no need for a ceasefire or an armistice because, they're not at war. But, because while Somaliland definitely has natural resources worth exploiting, these resources can be found elsewhere. So it's not worth it to get involved in geopolitical disputes when you can find those resources elsewhere. In the past, Somaliland was a British protectorate that the British, they barely wanted it, and for which the British fought a 21-year war to put down the Dervish movement, whose goal was to create an independent and united Muslim Somalia. The British have no interest in returning or getting involved, and if not them, then who? Ethiopia certainly has an interest in a divided Somalia, but again, Somalia and Somaliland aren't at war, so Ethiopia doesn't have to do anything. There are basically no Shiites in Somalia, so Iran has no interest. Yeah, Somalia is a Sunni nation. And for all the other Sunni Arab states, they would find it easier to work with the Sunni government in Malaysia. There are no French speakers in Somaliland, so France has no interest. The Italians never controlled Somaliland. In fact, they controlled every part of Somalia except Somalia, so they have no interest. But I think China would find it easier to work with the government in Mogadishu. But you can go on and go on and go on forever mentioning all these countries. There just isn't a country that stands to gain anything from recognizing Somaliland. That's why I was just mentioning all these countries. Like, there's no countries that have any ties to Somaliland and have anything to gain. Like, is there any mutual interest involved where they would have any reason to recognize them as a state? No. And there's a lot of reasons. Many nations they're kind of afraid of setting a precedent, because when you set a precedent to where you give a state independence willy-nilly, because it's not really willy-nilly. In this condition, Somaliland has its own currency. They have their own banks. They have their own schools. They have their own laws. They have their own education system. They have their own prime minister. They have their own cabinet. They have their own parliament. They have their own currency. Like, they have their own police force. They have their own everything. They have everything they need to function as a functioning country. But they just don't have the recognition. But if Somaliland got its independence, that would set a huge precedent. There would be other would-be separatist regions in Africa, and the consensus seems to be that rewarding Somaliland, with international diplomatic recognition, it would be like opening a Pandora's box, guys. Generally there is international reluctance to recognizing a state that breaks away against the will of a parent state. South Sudan, by contrast, received international recognition of its independence because it separated after coming to an agreement with the parent state in Khartoum. This is, it's kind of unfair to Somaliland, because for decades the so-called federal government in Mogadishu has controlled little beyond the city limits of the capital. They control a couple rocks in Mogadishu with the help of the UN. But it's difficult to negotiate a separation when there's no one with whom to negotiate. But that was in 2019. Right now they control a bit more with the help of the UN, but they don't have any real power. The central government in Somalia, it's not a central government, it's a federal government, but they don't really have any real power. They don't control shit. They only control a few rocks in Mogadishu. States also do not want to provide a helpful how-to guide for their own Western readers. Yeah, it's really complicated, guys. From my standpoint, I believe that the borders are pretty uncertain. Somaliland, they claim more than they actually control, and it's caused a fair number of skirmishes with their neighbors. Even especially in Puntland and even Jubaland. Like, there's a lot of states that they don't have defined borders. So when you don't have defined borders, that's going to cause clashes with neighboring states. And if you have clashes with neighboring states and your borders are not defined, then that's going to be a step against you to get recognized as an independent country. The international community, it's aware of the issues, but they see no purpose in shaking things up or endangering the hard-won advances over the last 2 years. Yeah, I mean, sure. Like the truth is, like it's probably never gonna get its independence in my lifetime. I would like to see it because I feel like it's like, imagine you're married to a wife and she wants a divorce, but you're not going to give her a divorce. You're staying in a marriage that the other party no longer wants to be in. So it's kind of like it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's not a double-edged sword, but you're kind of at a conundrum here. Um, yeah, but why would you want to be with someone that doesn't want to be with you? Like, you want to be with someone that fucking hates your guts? Like, come on, man. But yeah, the Somali people are very much hypocrites. They believe that those people that are in Somaliland, they don't deserve anything. They think that those people should just get and have nothing. You know, that's how they think. These people are pretty crazy. But anyways, that's all I have to say about Somaliland. Tell me what you guys think down in the comment section down below, and I'm out. Peace.